2.5D Metroidvanias do not waste your time. They drop you into layered worlds full of locked paths, brutal bosses, and upgrades that slowly turn the map into something you finally understand. It is frustration first, then satisfaction all at once when everything connects. So today we are counting down some of the best 2.5D Metroidvania games you need to play right now. So without further ado, let's get started with Color Blend FX Desaturation. This is one of those games that's hard to pin down. It's a puzzle platformer at heart, but with some serious Metroidvania leanings. You play as these little creatures called Splatons, and your whole goal is to bring color back to a world that's been stripped of it by a rogue government project. The gimmick is you're constantly mixing and matching colors to solve environmental puzzles and unlock new paths. The movement can feel a little floaty, a bit slow at first, which might throw you off, but once you get into the rhythm of it, it's super satisfying. The puzzles are genuinely clever and never feel like they're wasting your time. And honestly, the art style is just joyful. It's a nice chill experience when you want to break from all the super hard, grimdark stuff in the genre. It's a hidden gem that puzzle fans and Metroidvania completionists will absolutely dig. Give it a shot. Coming in next, we have Resetna. This is a sci-fi action Metroidvania where you play as the titular robot on a post-apocalyptic world, and it's got a really cool, clean visual style. The big hook here is the combat. It's fast, it's parry-heavy, and it's all about managing 3 different weapon types that you can swap between on the fly. It feels a bit like a robot-themed Devil May Cry Lite. The upgrade system is also unique. You slot chips into a grid, kind of like a modular skill tree, which lets you really tailor your build to your playstyle. It starts off a little slow. You have to be patient for the first hour or so while it introduces its systems and the world. But once it clicks, the boss fights become these really tight, challenging combat puzzles that are a blast to solve. The story is a bit hard to follow, the UI has some rough edges, but if you can look past that stuff, you're getting a really solid, tight action game. A must-play for parry enthusiasts. So next up, it's Headlander. Look, the premise alone makes this worth a look. You are a disembodied human head, flying around a retro-futuristic 70s-inspired space station, and you can latch onto any robot body you find to take control of it. That's the whole game, and it's as fun as it sounds. It was made by Double Fine, so you know the writing is going to be weird and funny. You're constantly scanning for new hosts, each with different abilities that let you access new areas. It's more of a puzzle-focused Metroidvania than a combat-heavy one. The action isn't super deep, and the level design is a bit on the linear side for the genre, but the sheer creativity of the core mechanic is just wonderful. It's not a 40-hour epic, more like an 8-hour tightly paced adventure that doesn't overstay its welcome. If you're tired of brooding heroes and dark castles, this is a total breath of fresh air. One of the most unique entries on the entire list. And up next, let's talk about Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. And yeah, I know, the 3DS and Vita game. But hear me out. Armature Studio, which is made up of some of the original Metroid Prime devs, made a 2.5D Metroidvania that actually feels like an Arkham game. You're exploring a prison, unlocking gadgets like the grapnel gun and explosive gel to access new areas. And the combat is a simplified version of the free flow system. The way the camera moves and shifts perspectives to show you different planes of depth is genuinely clever for a 2013 handheld game. Now, don't get me wrong, it's flawed. The map is confusing as hell to navigate, the boss fights are frustrating, and the story is forgettable. But for what it is, it's a surprisingly faithful Batman experience in a 2D space. It's the only game on this list where you can do a silent takedown and then grapple up to a vantage point in classic Batman fashion. A fun piece of Arkham history that's worth digging up. And next up we have Strider. This is a reboot of the classic arcade franchise from 2014, and it is all about speed. You are Hiryu, a super ninja, and you move so freaking fast. The levels are huge, interconnected mazes, and your mission is to take down a dystopian city's tyrannical ruler. The movement is the star of the show. You start off with a sprint, a slide, and an air dash, and it's just pure joy to zip around. Combat is equally stylish, with a really simple but effective combo system where you just slice everything to ribbons with your plasma sword. The 2.5D cel-shaded art style still looks gorgeous, and it runs at 60 frames per second like a dream. The story is basically non-existent, and the environments can get a bit repetitive, but who cares when you feel like a total god of cyber ninja death the entire time? It respects your time, respects your reflexes, and is just a pure, unfiltered power trip. Highly recommend if you just want to turn your brain off and be awesome. Coming in next, Mio Memories in Orbit is a recent one that absolutely blew me away. It is a stunning, hand-painted Metroidvania about a little robot exploring a derelict spaceship. The art direction is incredible. It's not grim or dark, it's this beautiful, melancholy, almost ethereal look that makes you want to just stare at the backgrounds. The movement starts simple but quickly evolves as you unlock a grappling hook, a glide, and a wall cling, and it all feels incredibly fluid and responsive. The combat has a nice weight to it, with a parry system that feels great to master. We're talking a solid 25 to 30 hours for a full playthrough, which is a nice, meaty adventure that doesn't feel padded. It's a game about exploration and environmental storytelling first, combat second, and it nails the quiet, lonely vibe of being lost in space. If you like games that are more about atmosphere than twitch reflexes, this one is an absolute can't miss. So next up we have Grime 2. The original was a weird, gross, fantastic Souls-like Metroidvania, and the sequel is somehow better in almost every way. This time you're a weird, formless creature in a world made of living rock, but everything is tighter, faster, and more refined. The combat is brutal and precise, focused entirely on a parry system that is both your main defense and your main method of attack. The level design is top-notch, a massive, interconnected world that feels like a cohesive place rather than a bunch of levels stuck together. The bosses are incredibly well designed, challenging, but never feeling unfair. The surreal art style is even more striking this time around, with incredible creature designs that are genuinely unsettling. It does have a little bit of jank here and there, and it's definitely on the harder side, but for fans of the genre, it's easily one of the best we've played in years. A phenomenal sequel that deserves way more attention. So next on the list, the Mobius Machine is a classic-feeling sci-fi Metroidvania in the best way possible. It throws you onto an alien planet with no hand-holding, just you and your blaster, and says, figure it out. The world is huge, and I mean massive, with a ton of different biomes to explore, from alien jungles to desolate mechanical wastelands. The controls are snappy and responsive, which is crucial for a game that demands you do a lot of precise platforming and shooting. The 3D character models and environments have a chunky PS2 era aesthetic that I honestly really dig. It's also quite difficult, and the map can be really confusing to navigate, which some people might find frustrating. But for those of us who love that feeling of being a lost explorer in a hostile world, it's a perfect fit. It's not the most inventive game on this list, but it executes the core Metroidvania formula with a ton of confidence. Now moving on, we have Dark Light. This game calls itself a 2D Souls-like Metroidvania, but it features 3D models and environments, so I guess that still makes it 2.5D, right? It's got a dark, cyberpunk aesthetic, rain-slick streets, and neon lights everywhere. The combat is weighty, methodical, and all about stamina, management, and learning enemy attack patterns. The big twist is you have a drone companion that you can upgrade and use in combat, which adds a unique tactical layer to the fights. The story is delivered through text, but the translation is not great, to put it mildly. It's often incomprehensible, and it's janky. There's no getting around it. There are bugs, the difficulty can be wildly inconsistent, and sometimes you get overpowered too quickly. But if you can tolerate a bit of Euro jank in your Souls-like games, the atmosphere and the core combat loop are really, really good. A flawed but fascinating game. And next up, let's talk about The Devil Within Satgat. This one came out of early access recently, and it's a slick, stylish, Korean-developed Metroidvania that's like a mix of Ninja Gaiden and Sekiro. You're a cyber samurai, basically, and the combat is fast, flashy, and incredibly deep. It's heavily reliant on a parry system, and when you nail it, you feel like an absolute action hero. The skill tree is enormous, letting you unlock tons of new moves and abilities to customize your playstyle. The visual style is this cool mix of traditional Asian architecture and futuristic sci-fi. The game also features a heavy metal soundtrack composed by Matt Heafy from Trivium, which is just awesome. The translation is a bit spotty, and the performance in some areas can be rough, but the combat is so good. If you're a fan of games where mastering the parry is the key to everything, this is a must-play. So coming in next, we have Venture to the Vile. This is a weird one. It's a Metroidvania set in a town that's being slowly consumed by a mysterious, corrosive substance called the Vile. The whole vibe is very grim and macabre, but it's got a twisted sense of humor about it. You're not just exploring a castle or a facility, you're exploring a whole town, and the quests are non-linear, letting you tackle them in whatever order you want. The combat is solid, you've got melee and ranged options, and there are some cool ability unlocks. The voice acting is all done in a unique gibberish language, which is an interesting choice that some people will hate and some will find charming. It's not super polished, the combat lacks a bit of oomph, and the difficulty can spike in weird places, but it's got a ton of personality and a really unique setting that sets it apart from the usual fantasy or sci-fi tropes. A hidden gem for people who like weird, ambitious indie games. Now, this next one is kind of a surprise for me. It's Kong Survivor Instinct. On paper, a licensed MonsterVerse game sounds like a disaster, but this 2.5D Metroidvania is actually pretty solid. You're not playing as Kong. You're a regular human dad trying to rescue his daughter in a city that's being leveled by titans. It's a smart perspective because it makes you feel incredibly small and vulnerable. The gameplay is a mix of platforming, puzzle solving, and combat against human soldiers and monsters. The visuals are surprisingly high quality, with detailed environments and cool set-piece moments where you see Kong or other titans fighting in the background. The combat is pretty simple and gets repetitive, and the game is on the shorter side, but for what it is, it's a ton of fun. It's a perfect palate cleanser between bigger, more complex Metroidvanias. Who would have thought a Kong game would be one of the more enjoyable ones on this list? And coming in next, we have Somber Echoes. This is a Grecian tragedy-inspired Metroidvania, and the aesthetic is incredible. You're exploring the ruins of an ancient spaceship that's been overrun by mythological beings, which is just a cool concept. The movement is a major highlight here. You have a ball of light you can throw and teleport to, and that core ability evolves over time, letting you pull off some incredible platforming sequences. The combat is solid but a bit simple, and the story is decent but nothing groundbreaking. The atmosphere, though, is second to none. It's quiet, lonely, and beautiful. The game is also on the easier side for the genre, which is actually a nice change of pace. It's a game you can play to relax and get lost in a beautiful world rather than one that's constantly trying to kill you. A very good, if not essential, Metroidvania. We're getting into the heavy hitters now. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is the game Koji Igarashi, the father of modern Castlevania, made when he said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." And he did. This is a 2.5D Castlevania game in all but name. You play as Miriam, a shardbinder, and the whole game is a love letter to Symphony of the Night and the GBA and DS Castlevanias. The amount of systems here is insane. You've got shards that give you enemy abilities, a crafting system for weapons and armor, food that gives you permanent stat boosts, and dozens of secrets to find. The 2.5D graphics look great, the castle is sprawling and full of secrets, and the music is fantastic. It is a little rough around the edges, the platforming is just okay, and some of the later areas feel a bit rushed. But for sheer density of content and that classic Igavania feel, nothing else comes close. It's the real deal. And coming in next, we have Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And to be real, this game caught me completely off guard. Ubisoft took a break from making huge open-world epics to make a focused, incredibly well-designed 2.5D Metroidvania, and it turned out to be one of the best in the genre in years. You play as Sargon, a young warrior who gets trapped in Mount Kof, a cursed mountain that doesn't follow the normal rules of time and space. The movement is buttery smooth, with a great parry system and some truly cool, time-based powers. The platforming challenges are tough but fair, and the combat has a surprising amount of depth. It's also got a ton of quality of life features, like the ability to take a screenshot of a blocked path and pin it to your map. Just a brilliant addition. It's a full-fat, 25-hour adventure that respects your time and rewards your curiosity. If you've been sleeping on this one, go play it. It's fantastic. So next up, it's Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch. Okay, the name is a little silly, but don't let that fool you. This is a diesel-punk Metroidvania where you play as a rabbit with a giant, rocket-powered fist, and it's awesome. The combat is the main draw here. You have 3 weapons, the fist, a drill, and a whip. And you can swap between them mid-combo to create some incredibly flashy and powerful strings. It's got a deep combo system, parries, dodges, and more moves than you'll ever actually need. The world of Torch City is this amazing, detailed, steampunk-inspired metropolis that's a joy to explore. The story is whatever, the English voice acting is terrible, and there's more backtracking than I'd like. But when you're in a flow state, chaining together massive combos with that giant mechanical fist, it's one of the most satisfying combat systems in any 2.5D game. Pure, punchy fun. And next up, let's talk about Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. This is the sequel to Ender Lilies, and it's a massive improvement in almost every way. The first game had a great atmosphere and a cool system where you fought alongside enemy spirits. This one takes that same foundation and just polishes everything to a mirror shine. The combat is snappier, more responsive, and the variety of skills and abilities you can equip is way larger. The world is huge and interconnected, and the map is one of the best I've ever used in a Metroidvania. It actually tells you where you haven't been yet, which is a game changer. The art style is that same gorgeous, melancholic look, and the music is absolutely beautiful. It's challenging, but not punishing, with a ton of quality of life features that make it a joy to play. If you bounced off the first one, I highly recommend giving this sequel a shot. It's a triumph. And next on the list, Rogue Legacy 2 is technically a roguelite, but the structure is so heavily Metroidvania that it belongs on this list. The whole gimmick is that every time you die, you're replaced by your kid, who has random genetic traits that completely change how you play. One run, you might be a giant with a ton of health. The next, you could be a tiny character with vertigo that flips your screen upside down. It's chaotic, it's hilarious, and it makes every run feel fresh. The core gameplay is exploring a constantly shifting castle, fighting enemies, unlocking new abilities, and taking on tough bosses. The combat is tight, the class variety is huge, and the progression system is super addictive. Yes, there is a grind. You will die a lot, and the dialogue is a lot to handle. But the thrill of getting a little further in your next run, unlocking a new class, or finally beating a tough boss is pure dopamine. One of the best roguelite Metroidvanias ever made. Coming in next, Mandragora Whispers of the Witch Tree is another 2.5D Metroidvania. That's basically what would happen if someone threw Dark Souls and Castlevania in a blender, and I mean that in the best way possible. This game is huge, reportedly over 40 hours for a first playthrough. The world is a massive, interconnected map with branching paths, shortcuts to unlock, and secrets everywhere. The combat is weighty and methodical, like a Souls game. You've got stamina management, bonfire-like save points, and you lose your XP when you die and have to go pick it back up. There's a deep skill tree and crafting system that lets you really customize your character build. The art style is beautiful, with a dark, fantasy aesthetic that's reminiscent of Diablo. The combat can be a little clunky at times, and it's definitely not the most innovative game out there. But if you want a massive, challenging, and rewarding Metroidvania that will keep you busy for weeks, this is a fantastic choice. So next up we have Vigil: The Longest Night. This one is a real cult classic, a Lovecraftian Souls-like Metroidvania with a gorgeous hand-drawn art style that's equal parts beautiful and horrifying. It's got a thick, brooding atmosphere that few games in the genre can match. The world is huge and full of secrets, and the story is surprisingly compelling, a tale of cosmic horror and personal tragedy. The combat is decent, with 4 weapon types and a magic system, and it feels satisfying to master. It's also a bit janky. The combat can feel weightless at times, the enemy AI isn't great, and the platforming is a little stiff. It's a game that has a lot of rough edges, but for people who can look past them for the sake of a great atmosphere and a unique world, it's a truly special experience, a perfect example of style over substance in the best way. And next up, Castlevania Lords of Shadowmere of Fate, the HD version, is a weird one, but I love it. It's a 2.5D action platformer that serves as a bridge between the Lords of Shadow games, and you get to play as 4 different characters across different time periods: Gabriel Belmont, his sons Trevor and Alucard, and his grandson Simon. It's got that Lords of Shadow hack-and-slash combat with light and heavy attacks, combos, and a magic system, but in a 2D space. The story is a massive part of the experience, and it ties together the Lords of Shadow lore in some really cool ways. The visuals are great, the boss fights are huge and cinematic, and it's got a killer soundtrack. It's a bit linear for a Metroidvania, not a ton of RPG elements or deep exploration, but as a 2.5D action game with a fantastic story and great characters, it's a blast. A must-play for any Castlevania fan. Another one we have here is The Last Case of Benedict Fox. This one is all about the vibes. It's a Lovecraftian Metroidvania set in a decaying 1920s Boston. You're a detective who can enter a demonic plane called Limbo to solve mysteries, and the whole presentation is just dripping with style. The art direction is gorgeous, the music is haunting, and the atmosphere is thick enough to cut with a knife. The focus here is on exploration and puzzle solving, not combat. And that's a good thing, because the combat is easily the worst part of the game. It's clunky, frustrating, and just not fun. But if you go in expecting a puzzle-focused game with light action elements, you'll have a much better time. The definitive edition fixed some of the major complaints, smoothing out the experience. It's a flawed gem, but one that's absolutely worth experiencing for its incredible style and unique detective mechanics. Now next up we have Metroid Dread, the return of 2D Metroid after nearly 2 decades, and it did not disappoint. This is Samus at her absolute best. The movement is the star here. It's fast, fluid, and incredibly precise. The slide, the wall jump, the flash shift, it all comes together to make you feel like a total badass. The Emmy Zones are the big new addition, and they are terrifying. These are nearly indestructible robots that patrol specific areas of the map, and if they catch you, it's an instant kill. Escaping them is a white-knuckle experience that's unlike anything else in the genre. The game is also quite linear, more like Metroid Fusion than Super Metroid, which bothered some people. But for me, the sheer quality of the moment-to-moment gameplay is unmatched. The 2.5D visuals are gorgeous, the boss fights are incredible, and it's just a masterclass in level design and pacing. A triumphant return for the queen of the genre. And coming in next, Nine Souls is another game that is also one of the best games to come out in the last couple of years. This is a Sekiro-like Metroidvania set in a futuristic Taopunk world, and everything about it is incredible. The combat is entirely based on a precise parry system. You parry, and you get punished hard if you mess up. Mastering the parry timings is a steep learning curve, but when it clicks, it's the most satisfying combat system in any 2.5D game. The boss fights are some of the best I've ever seen. Each one a challenging cinematic duel that will test everything you've learned. The hand-drawn art style is beautiful, the story is surprisingly mature and emotional, and the world design is top tier. It's a hard game, no question, but the feeling of finally parrying a 12-hit combo and getting that death blow is unmatched. An absolute must-play. And finally, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a masterpiece, plain and simple. The first game, Ori and the Blind Forest, was a beautiful but a bit janky platformer. The sequel fixes every single complaint and then raises the bar for the entire genre. The movement is flawless. Every new ability, from the grappling hook to the burrow, feels incredible to use. The combat was completely overhauled, introducing a weapon system, spells, and shards to customize your build, making it genuinely deep and engaging. The world of Niwen is huge, vibrant, and packed with secrets. And the story is an absolute tearjerker, one of the most emotional narratives I've ever experienced in a video game. The music is perfect, the visuals are stunning, and the platforming challenges are some of the most intense and rewarding in the genre. It's a game that fires on all cylinders. If you play only one Metroidvania this year and haven't played any of the Ori games yet, make it this one. Now, I know I already said the last game, but I feel like I really have to mention Frontier Hunter Urza's Wheel of Fortune. So yeah, consider this as a bonus game. This is a massive, ambitious, and frankly overwhelming Metroidvania that feels like a celebration of the genre. It's an anime-style action RPG with 3 playable characters, a huge skill tree, crafting systems, a romance system, and so much content it's kind of insane. The combat is fast and addictive, with a ton of weapon variety and special moves to unlock. The world is huge, with tons of secrets and hidden walls to find. The presentation is top-notch, with high-quality anime cutscenes and a banger soundtrack. It's not perfect. The translation is a bit rough, there are some difficulty spikes, and it can be a bit janky at times. But the sheer amount of love and content on display here is staggering. For Metroidvania and JRPG fans, this is a dream come true. A fantastic, ambitious, and utterly charming game.